Hey, what's up, guys? I'm back here for a no limit episode of the Poker Spectator. Here in my classy Gringo Tuesdays shirt. I'm very excited to be wearing. A little bit of, memories, nostalgia even. But yeah, here to analyze some no limit hands and have a good time with you guys. Provide you a tiny bit of entertainment. Let's just jump right in. Phil Chang opens slightly under 3x and gets popped from the BB. A little bit deeper. One thing I can say is that 3-bet sizings in general, that's because they're deeper here, but in general 3-bet sizings are trending bigger. Pre-flop solvers have evolved and are showing that it is preferable to 3-bet larger at a position than maybe previously expected. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, effectively here, MP versus BB. Get a call, ace 6-3 gets check called. Nino will have hands, of course, in his range like kings and queens that generally really don't benefit much from betting. And so he will also have some of his other parts of range checking here. If he has a hand like aces, he's really blocking the call hands. So he's also incentivized to check a hand like that and allow hands that basically have almost no equity to put money into the pot occasionally, or hit hands that will put in a lot of money, like a set of fives, for example. But anyway, goes check call here on the flop, and Phil is willing to bet turn here. In these positions, Phil can certainly have a ace king type hand and not 4-bet it. He can also potentially bet turn with ace queen. He can maybe at some frequency, of course, have bluffs, though I would say, against some people, you're not facing enough bluffs to be very happy here with your under pairs. It's going to be, some people, of course, will punt it off, but there's quite a bit of people in various player pools that just won't show you enough bluffs here. At the same time, though, pocket 3s and pocket 6s is only 4 combinations, and there's a very good chance that none of the 6x that he does have, if he has any, which, 6-7 suited certainly very likely in his range, but it's only 2 combos and very unlikely to have bet the flop. So you're not actually looking at almost any, if any, trips here from Phil Chang. And, 4 combos of quad and 3s and maybe, some ace-6 suited is 2 more combos. It's not a whole lot of combinations. So that being said, when he is willing to bet turn here, it's already going to narrow the range quite a bit. So you will just see the ace-king here quite a lot just because it's going to be disproportionately more combos than the other stuff. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a rough spot in Nino's shoes if he doesn't have the ace-ace or actual good premium check. If you have the underpair here, it's going to be a little bit rough. He actually shoves here, which is fascinating. I mean, Nino could certainly himself have a 6x, and he will have more 6x than Phil Chang, I would assume, here, because he would maybe 3-bet even some of the gappers and then actually play them as a check call. Whereas Phil, I'm not sure, is going to bet a hand like that on the flop himself. So pretty interesting spot. I mean, at this point, you don't really expect Nino to be shoving here with a, ace 10 of hearts type hand. If he did play ace king this way, I guess maybe, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's at least discounted somewhat because he would choose to bet a chunk of them on the flop. Some people would bet most of them. So I definitely don't expect to see an under pair here. It'd be very strange too. Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't be surprised actually if Nino shows up here with a 6 and Phil Chang. I mean, nah, I don't know if I can say that. Like, I would be a little bit surprised. I think we're gonna see a hand that we probably shouldn't see here. I feel like it's more likely that Nino has one of the combinations that shouldn't have done this than he has the hand that he should. But so ace-ace itself you know, it's one combination when Phil holds the other ace. So you're trying to get the value from a pretty narrow portion of range. I assume Phil would have shoved most rivers himself. He wouldn't have shoved maybe on a spade just because it's a bit too thin, even though it's unlikely that Nino has, I mean, maybe Phil does, I'm not sure, but there's a decent chance that he wouldn't, like, at least on some rivers. Like, I don't think he's going to shove the Jack or Queen of Spades almost ever, and then some of the other spades, you know, he might not, he might, because it isn't that likely that Nino would actually at that point have a flush, but maybe he does slow play some stuff, and maybe he actually finds folds with some of the other weaker hands that you're trying to get value from. So it doesn't make it an amazing value shove necessarily on some of those cards. And again, some people it'd probably just be mostly a value drown still. But here, Nino decides to check raise turn. I assume under the premise of, you know, Phil can have ace king, maybe ace queen, and he's worried that river will kill action while he will get called now. That's kind of, that's, you know, you are preventing Phil from having bluffs, basically. You're pushing them off, and they have obviously no equity. But if he's assuming that he's not expecting Phil Cheng to have those bluffs anyway, period, and then he's going to miss out on some of the value from hands like this one. I mean, this is why he's doing it. I'm playing devil's advocate. I don't think that this is the correct approach to this spot from Nino in general. Like, exploitatively, yes, it might be the highest EV play if you can make all these assumptions about Phil Cheng. But I don't think that, you know, the true tellers of the world would shove turn here. They would almost certainly check call and allow the other player. Like, every one of the top dudes would check call turn here pretty much. Unless you can just build that framework of assumptions where you don't really benefit from the flat and then you get it in. Man, we're amped on this. We're amped on this T right now. Maybe I'm going in too deep on this. Maybe we're in too deep on this right now, all right? But what I said, it rings true, so I figured I'd say it. That's why we're here, right? We're here to say things. I'm gonna slow down, man. Somebody's gonna accuse me of being on the good stuff. Next hand. I mean, is there a point in seeing the river? None of them make a difference. But let's keep moving, man. So here, we have a cutoff open, button flat. And a squeeze from What a Foot, long time regular. A flat from Progad. XXL. This man is implying size. He is big emphasis on size. Big emphasis. This man's wearing overalls that could fit a family. 120 into 185. C-bet. Funneling that money in. Pretty good turn for What a Foot. You know, less set combos from Progad, which could definitely flat here. I mean, you're shifting out two combos. There's not a lot of 2x. I mean, still flatting the squeeze, specifically maybe ace-2 suited. And, you know, 8s and 4s are in there. What a Foot is representing a overpair. And I assume he's going to have the appropriate amount of bluffs to balance for that if he wants to. Assuming he doesn't have certain assumptions on Progad that would lead him to shift more towards value, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, What a Foot goes ahead and sticks in the rest for value and has the overpair and notches Jacks. Jacks bluff catching here versus squeeze range, you know, it's possible, I guess, that What a Foot has 10s here. But, I mean, he is going to have the 18 combos of better overpair. And, yeah, I mean, I think 10s do bet shove here. Because, realistically, they can get called by worse. They do want to bet flop because they benefit the most from denying equity. And still get quite a bit of value from pairs and even some worse hands than that. I mean, if Progad has 6-7 suited, ace-5 suited, or ace-queen of hearts, I don't assume he's going to be folding those on flop, even versus the sizing we chose. So you're getting value there. On turn, you yourself can be perceived to have continued bluffs, not just with spade. I mean, it's just a very favorable turn. So Yeah, I mean, it's hard to fault Jack's call. I mean, it's pretty close to the top of range. He has button flatted versus cutoff Jacks, but it is for quite a bit. And he is going to run into those 18 combos that beat him, plus maybe a little bit more. So, yeah. Shrug. On the river there, you know, like, he doesn't have to be right very often. If he's assuming what if who has the appropriate amount of bluffs, he also doesn't have the Jack of Spades, so he doesn't block some of those potential punt offs. Pretty standard overall. I mean, it'd be hard to say otherwise here, honestly. Except for the fact that he flatted pre versus cutoff with the Jacks. I think for the most part, he should still be 3-betting the vast majority of the Jacks button versus cutoff here. I don't want to say all, because I don't think that like flatting 10% of them is going to have a drastic impact one way or another, and it's cool to have that hand occasionally in your flatting range. But yeah, I think he probably should be 3-betting that hand most of the time still. So I think it makes significantly more money in the 3-bet range still, even though, yeah. Boulevard Knights opens minimum, God of Heads Up flats, small blind, and Nuts Random flats. Of course, Nuts Random is going to be flatting here for 5 with a very wide portion of his hands. Also, shout out to Flufford, one of the big legends of the 2-5 pool of old. And we get a small c-bet here, which God of Heads Up attacks on the King 7-4. So against the small c-bet strategy on a King 7-4, you actually do want to shift some of your stronger normal hands into, like when I say normal, it's not just like you don't really have kings here, and you're not going to have, you know, sets very often. And though versus the min, maybe you are flatting 4s, but you're just not going to have 2 pair here, and value combo is very limited on the surface. But versus this sizing, the correct strategy is to shift some of your top pairs into a raise. This was multi-way, but even then, versus the small sizing, I do believe that we are shifting some of our top pair into the raising range, and also of our flats, if we have some of the backdoor flush draw with 3 straight components, they also get raised here, according to solution play. So you should be attacking this small c-bet here a bit more aggressively than I think some people do. You know, people are conditioned to not fold a lot of the time to it, which is correct at this point, but I think that people are probably too passive in general against the small c-bets. And you do see both solvers and good players slapping them at a heightened frequency, even though, you know, you're not gonna, like, once again, you're not actually gonna be showing the guy King 7 or 7-4 here. You're not gonna have kings, might even 3-bet some of your 7s, so you don't actually have that raw super standard value hand, which might not even want to raise on a board like this. But correct play versus these sizings, even on boards like this, is to actually shift more things into the raising range and find more bluffs with some backdoor straight draw, flush draw type hands that versus min he can certainly have as flats. So we do get a raise here from God of Heads Up, and we get a re-raise from Boulevard Knights. Now Boulevard Knights is uncapped and can have the 2 pairs, because his opening range will have 7-4 suited, King 7 suited, King 7 offsuit perhaps, and of course the King 7-4s, and he can also have the aces and ace kings, which God of Heads Up for the most part will not have. So this is an interesting play. It's putting a lot of pressure on most of God of Heads Up's range, and God of Heads Up does flat, which will be correct with most of even the very good hands he has here. I don't think he wants to put in another raise just based on how range versus range works here. So turn 9 offsuit, Boulevard Knights is still implying part of the nutted value range, and God of Heads Up might have near the top of his range, might make the correct call down. Boulevard Knights has a wide range going into the the situation. He has a button min raising range. I assume that's going to be quite a wide range opening. So even still, even though he has all of the combinations that I mentioned of value that maybe God of Heads Up doesn't have most of, he is going into this with a pretty wide range. And so the value range is still fairly narrow combo wise, and he could decide, he could perceive it the way I said, that like God of Heads Up doesn't have these value hands really. There's very few of these other ones, and I can have them, but it'd still be easy to overbluff here, and he could turn some of the gut shots, some of the 6-8, some of the 5-6 or 3-5, some of his own like better King X blocker stuff, like Queen Jack suited perhaps, into a play like this, and it wouldn't be that hard to actually still end up overbluffing here. So I don't expect people to end up overbluffing here for the most part, but it is possible, and it's going to be a pretty interesting spot with God of Heads Up. Like, what is he actually going to end up putting all the money in here with to defend appropriately? It does make it a pretty rough spot on a chunk of God of Heads Up's range. So River Jack, not sure how much it changes. I mean, it actually is possible for God of Heads Up to potentially have King Jack play this way. Though that might not seem congruent. It is a hand that might flat small blind there, versus the small sizing. It is a potentially hand that could raise for a pretty small sizing still, and then decide that Boulevard Knights is going to have more bluffs than value, given we block King 7 and King King and whatnot. It's possible. On the other hand, Boulevard Knights could possibly have a hand like Queen 10 even. It is more likely for him to have, you know, 10-8 or Queen 10 than for God of Heads Up. So he also has the rest of the value range. Maybe a couple combos do improve on this river. Yeah, I mean, we do know from the size of the pot that it gets shoved in here. So we do see top set. It's a whole lot of talking for me for a very unspectacular hand here. God of Heads Up gets super coolered. It's just top set. It's just what he's repping. I was hoping to see something magical based on all this analysis, but it was just set over set. So I wasted both of our times. I apologize for it. And I'm going to talk less on the next hand. I'm going to talk less. God damn it. No, don't damn it. I'm gratitude. Gratitude. Thank you, God. Gratitude. Gratitude. What a cooler. What a sick fucking cooler, man. Pardon my language. Alright, next hand. Cutoff opens, God of Heads Up 3 bets. Cold call from Cold, 1932. Yeah, I mean, sometimes the name is accurate. I don't know if he's born in 1932, but God of Heads Up goes ahead and bets. Of course, Cold is going to be heavily weighted towards hands like Queens and Jags, and maybe even stronger than that, like Kings. Maybe he has some Ace Queen of Spades or Hearts here as well, but it's going to be pretty narrow range for the most part here, unless it's some super punter whale. And I don't know the player, it's possible, but I would still imagine that it's more likely to just be the hands I mentioned by a lot. Hirosov does fold, and we have a turn King of Spades, and God of Heads Up actually goes ahead and overbets here. Now, this is pretty interesting to me because, yes, it is a card that, you know, favors... Well, God of Heads Up will have more flushes here. I mean, he 3-bet the button versus cutoff. He will still have hands like 7-8 of spades, 10-9 of spades, Ace-Jack of spades, and, you know, a chunk of those flush draws. He will go ahead and c-bet here, potentially. It's not a board that necessarily smashes either of the other players, and so at least a big chunk of the flush draws, I would imagine, do bet. Some would check back, but his flushes here, you know, on the King of Spades, it might look bluffy to do this. He's definitely a regular that's going to play the spot appropriately to an extent. So if he's exploitatively expecting this to make more money, or if he's just raw balanced for this sizing on turn here, I don't know. I don't know Cold 1932, but you know, Cold 1932's flush draws are very limited here. I don't expect him to be cold calling here with hands like 9-8 of spades. So if he has ace queen, ace jack of spades, all right. The king of spades, you know, now he can't have king queen or king jack of spades, or ace king of spades if he doesn't cold 4-bet that. So, you know, the limited amount of combos of flushes, it's not a very happy card for your queens and jacks, which you could be getting put on pretty squarely. And there's more combos of those than flushes by quite a bit. So, you know, half of those combos have a spade, but they're not really... You don't really want them necessarily to fold. You want them to make a mistake, right? So I'd imagine like a sizing like 190 does a better job of targeting hands like that. So why exactly are we sizing 300 here on the king of spades? It's pretty interesting to me. It's at least interesting to me. Yeah, I mean it gets peeled. I mean, I assume the reason is because he wants to make the man fold those hands, or yeah, because I don't see how it's gonna maximize value here. Really, I don't see how this maximizes value. I think it's just like targeting under pairs and trying to get them to fold. River jack. Kind of heads up shoves the rest in. I mean, I don't know. We know it gets called. So, like, we expect cold to have kings, jacks, or ace, queen of spade here a lot. And, of course, I could be way off, and this could be, like, a huge ruler that ends up having... But, God of heads up here will still have some bluffs. And we'll still have flushes that I guess some of might have decided to bet. If he is betting 300 on the turn, he's implying he has a range for doing so. So... if that's the case, it's quite a polarizing sizing. Not surprised to see a flush from him some of the time here. So he does have the ace of spades queen, and cold 1932, my friends, does not have the under pair. He has the 3-4 suited. Now see, you might think that that's a suited connector, you know, and whatnot, but like, when you're that close to the bottom of the deck, it's not really even like functioning the way a 7-8 suited does. There's nothing under it. So it's kind of just hanging on to the coattail once in a while. Yeah, once in a while the 2-5-6 happens. And you are disguised here. God of heads up probably slightly irked. I would say, you know, I would possibly be. Sometimes I'm zen-like, and sometimes I'm not. This would be a situation where maybe the mother would have got to me. Maybe. Depends on the day. Depends on the day. Man. God bless you, God of heads up for participating in this hand. My condolences go out to you and your family. Damn. I mean, it was what it was. The 300 on turn was trying to make cold 1932 let go. And still had some equity. And made it pretty much impossible for cold 1932 under normal assumptions to have a flush. So it's super weighted towards him having, of course, on that Jack River, he does improve with Jack with the Jack of Spades. But, man. Kind of rough when you have the Queen and the Jack is the river, you know? Like, I actually don't know if on this particular river he was going to get enough folds here. With the shove sizing he did. It's pretty rough. I mean... maybe we're still assuming that he could have 10s, 9s, 8s, 7s, etc. at that point, and then like that's just clear. They're gonna have a pretty tough bluff catch at that point. But they did. I mean, he peeled 300 and 240. You'd think that a chunk of those hands maybe once in a while let go. 3-4. Wow. Whew. Okay, next hand. Four-handed here. Because bigger rake is better. Nah, I mean, that's, you know, it is what it is. At certain hours, it runs 4-handed, 5-handed at the 2-5 pool. And we got my boy Colt 1932 in the mix, so, well, how bad could it be? Say na na na, longtime regular is in the pot. Half pot c-bet from Cold on the ace 4-3 monotone. The follow through gets raised actually. So this is pretty interesting, of course. Say na 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 can definitely have hands like ace 4 suited, ace 3 suited, 4s, 3s, and perhaps also, you know, certain flushes that are just trying to get value from trip ace X. And Cold's range, of course, still can also have some of those flushes. A lot less of the boat. I mean, I don't think he's going to be 3-betting too often with 4s and 3s here. Maybe at some small frequency, but for the most part isn't. And yeah, I mean, maybe he can have the ace 4, ace 3 suiteds, but those are 2 combos each, so not a lot of them. And of course, there is one combo of quads potentially, depending on what is in Say Na Na Na's hand right now. Might make that impossible, and a chunk of the hands that are raising here do so. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Maybe Say Na 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 has also some bluff combos here, of course. You know, he's implying with the raise that he does. Maybe he would turn some of his king of spades, queen off, or something like that into a bluff occasionally, though it's not removing boat combos. Realistically, is that really a big deal when Cold has so few boats to begin with? And having the king of spades still does take out a chunk of the hands that would stack here. So I would imagine, you know, you wouldn't mind the king queen type hand, I suppose. I mean, it is also removing ace king, ace queen combos, which are the better ace X's that might not end up folding here, especially if they have a spade. I mean, you're not going to have a whole lot of 4-3 suited here, and is that a better bluff realistically? It does remove ace 4 suited, ace 3 suited, which is significant, but you're also not really expecting the man to fold a flush here, even though the board is paired. It's not like a PLO spot where that would be an ideal bluff. It's kind of interesting to me. I'm not sure how often we should even... No, I mean, the raise is reasonable with the range, so... As far as what the ideal bluffs would be here, it's at least a little bit interesting to me. So get re-raised here by Cold. Yeah, I'm not even gonna try after the last one. I'm not even gonna try, man. I mean, you know what it's implying. It's implying I got it, and he's leaving himself a little spliff here to work with. We get it in on the turn, and ladies and gentlemen, it is the quad combo that said, fuck it, I got it. I got it. So, it's Cold 1932's day right now. And that's a brutal cooler. My man. That's a brutal cooler. Whew. Brutal. Oh my god! Put some salt on that, man. PJ Salt. If you watch Twitch. Ooh. Rub it in the wound, man. Rub it in the wound. You got quads? That ain't good here, pimp. Get out of here. Get out of here, man. Get out of here, man. God damn. It's a brutal little thing. It's a brutal little couple hands we got here. Man. I've been going on for too long. Dude, this is gonna be a long episode. I'm gonna have to edit it out or something. How can I? Whatever. Nice hand. So we have God of Heads Up, Pace Scottster, whom I don't know, and Intersci, the legend, comes in swinging on him with the 4-bet. Gets peel, has position in a large pot, very deep, and gets a queen 10 deuce flop. C-bets it for half pot, gets called. Deuce turn, continues betting, and river 4, it's as clean as it could be, gets called. So I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about here. Intersci is going to have a variety of, well, he's mostly going to have overpairs and maybe top set. And he's going to have some frequency of bluffs for that range with his cold 4-betting range. So, pay Scottster might have paid off here with a hand like Ace Queen. And if we see like queens versus tens, obviously that's disgusting. So, could even maybe see a hand like aces versus kings here, I guess. But it was queens versus kings. So top set for inner side. Scoops up some salaries here. Slides it over. And that's the review for right now. This one kind of went long. I think there was some value in it. So I hope you enjoy. I'll see what I can do with the clipping and whatnot. I mean, I gotta get these down shorter a little bit though. 30 minutes is a long time. Not really for, like, remember Twitch? We used to do this stuff for a long time. I don't know, let me know what you think. Like, would it be better in bite-sized portions? Like, you know, 10-15 minutes, which is kind of what I'd aim at more. But here I got long-winded. I wanted to speak. Was that better for you or worse? I mean, this is a large segment, so let me know in the comments if you can what you prefer to see or any suggestions. And thank you for watching. I hope this entertained you. I certainly didn't necessarily nail everything 100%. To be fair though, with the cool 1932, I can't make the assumption that that's a 4 high cold calling type of individual. I mean, I can't let myself go down that route. I'm gonna be going with what's most likely. But I'm not saying that it's never gonna be some of the unlikely. Sometimes they got that ambition. Love you guys. See you soon. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, bless your soul. And yeah, see you in the next one.